I have invested plenty of hours on Marvel Rivals so far since its release earlier this month, although I need to get my skills up because I'm having trouble progressing too far in ranked. But needless to say, I'm interested to evaluate the different cosmetics of these heroes with maybe some stronger opinions than I had initially thought I would have. But anyway, let's talk cosmetics. Hola, my name is X, and I like to experiment with fashion as well as talk about whatever the hell I want on social media whenever I feel like it. And in this video, the agenda is pretty straightforward. I'm actually going to be reviewing many more cosmetics than I had thought and had planned to take a look at. Then along with that, also kind of assess maybe some alternate cosmetics that the game could or the developers could consider in the future based on how these heroes appear in other different pieces of media, whether comic books, other games, movies, etc. But I'm going to keep it kind of short and sweet per hero because there's a lot to get into. This isn't a complete character design deep dive and evaluation with regard to how well does it align with their role, their lore, etc. Easy breezy review of the cosmetics that are available so far. But with that, I am going to bring in a little bit of the evaluation criteria that I used for the Hellfire Gala, which is save the day versus slay the day, just because I'm going to be referencing that language as I go, and I don't want people to be like, what is this, without at least a little frame of reference. And just a couple of notes on the Marvel Rivals cosmetics in general, which should explain why I'm not completely blown away by what's available so far. One, while a lot of the cosmetics are slightly redesigned, and I would even say elevated to look a little bit more cool and futuristic and modern and just even progressive for the heroes in general, they're largely based on what we've already seen from these heroes before. So we're not getting too many looks that are completely novel, but they're still kind of cool to look at, and I'm excited to kind of highlight a little bit of the differentiation. But then on top of that too, a lot of the looks, especially the default ones, are really just armored versions of what we've already seen before, which I know that the majority, probably like 80 to 90% of people are blown away and just enamored by armored looks. I'm not like, it's not the most fashion, it's not the most style, which is what I care most about superficially. So that's why I was just like, oh, a little underwhelmed in some regards, but still cool. And I'll highlight which armored looks really stood out to me. And one more thing before we hop into the video is I just want to give a couple of shout outs to people who gave me some super thanks on my Tekken 8 outfitter, character, fighter, fashion review video. Pumble27. Second super thanks, high supporter of the channel, always giving thoughtful comments, always hyping me up and appreciating the content and the quality. So thanks again for continuing to support. And then we have Miriam coming through with a very generous super thanks. And I love that you were able to get a little bit of nostalgia and some good memories from the video, but also that you just appreciated looking at the outfits as much as I did. So really appreciate the support. And in general, I appreciate everybody who subscribes, watches, leaves thoughtful comments, and I hope you're supporting your favorite creators, especially small creators, because every little bit goes a long way, especially in this YouTube game. But with all that out of the way, I hope you enjoy. Now let's talk all of these various Marvel Rivals cosmetics, starting with Adam Warlock. And this is, I feel like, a tangible evolution from what we've seen. I like a bit more of the body confidence that it's coming through here, just like with the bolt elements coming through in the front, almost like suspenders, but ultimately a good holder for a cape. And even really the pants in general feel a little bit more futuristic, a little more techy. I like the circular elements. They're a good contrast to more of the sharper edges that we get in the upper body. And I think that his epic skin, I'm assuming, it's what we've seen before. We've seen this costume, but it's just more armored. I think it does look good. A fresher, more clean cut hairstyle. Not much more to say. It just works all well together and still kind of highlights his magic bolt components. The only two looks that I wanted to highlight for Black Panther, because his default is pretty much what we've already seen before, is this one. A little bit more barbarian and still plenty tribal, which I think ties to the kind of cultural elements of the character. But we've seen this before in the comics. It's just much more elaborated accessory wise, which just makes it a little bit more interesting and not as kind of flat and basic as it could have been otherwise. But I think that this is the strongest one so far, just because of the really nice textural fur elements around the collar or the neck of the suit, which is a great contrast to the armored elements that come through within this, because I know that his original suit isn't as armored as this. But I love the addition also of a bit more gold element and hardware. I just would love to see another one that's all black or majority black, just with more pronounced gold elements to really highlight the classic combination of black and gold together. Black Widow, a form-fitting bodysuit, which looks great for her lovely female silhouette. I mean, she looks great. I think that they've added some additional kind of pattern and design elements to the suit just to kind of make it look a little bit more interesting and not completely flat and one-dimensional. But we're not really getting anything too out of the box from what we've seen from her before. Maybe the colored one with the purple and the blue, just because it has a little bit more vibrance to it instead of just black and white. But I think that it would be great to see them maybe pull from even some of the cosmetics from Marvel Avengers for the PS4. There were so many different cosmetics for her in that game. Maybe just pull from that library to see how else you could spruce her up and make her just a little bit more fashion. Same thing with Hulk. I'm really not blown away here. We even as far as the Barbarian one with a little bit more of the armor and like discernible clothing pieces that aren't just torn shorts. We've seen this before in the comics. Like a lot of this is just kind of rinse and repeat, just with a little bit more of a techie twist. I would love to see them throw in a suit cosmetic eventually. Bring in that suit alter ego of the Hulk. There was also plenty of that within the PS4 Avengers game. Just something that takes us away from the rugged and into something a little bit more polished and classy and high fashion. I would definitely play him more as a tank character if he just gave me a little bit more style and flair. Kind of the same thing with Captain. The two more immediate skins, the yellow and his default, are just armored now. So it's kind of like that's the most elevation that we've gotten. The Gladiator one, I think, is a bit more interesting. I haven't seen that before, but it's also based on how he's appeared in comics already, just with more elaboration, similar to Black Panther's, one of Black Panther's alternate cosmetics. So, I mean, it's more interesting. At least there's more elements to kind of unpack, more hardware, more discernible clothing pieces. But even though I don't necessarily like the most kind of armored looks, I think that this Galactic Talon one is really interesting, just because it's the shield's different, the helmet is different, with the wings being a bit more pronounced, and it just looks it's much more cybernetic and much more futuristic and robotic, which just is cool. So I mean, that's where cool armor pieces kind of come into play. There is one look, I believe, maybe from the live action. As basic as that is, it would just be a little more fun and also bring in a little bit of fashion. Cloak and Dagger also looks very similar default-wise to how they've originally appeared, just with Dagger at least looking slightly more fashion, because it looks like she's wearing kind of like a cute cropped jacket, and it breaks us a little bit out of the completely flat, all white, one-dimensional bodysuit. And I haven't talked as much about like color variations, but I think that the lemon lime one just definitely shows a little bit more of that distinguishment or differentiation between the clothing components of her suit especially. So I do kind of like that, in addition with some gold elements. Growth and Decay, I like a bit more of the elaboration of some kind of harder, sharper elements. I think that some of their recent appearances, where they're maybe a little bit younger, a little bit more kind of urban and streetwear, I just think that that would be much more interesting and would make me want to play them more. Although I'm kind of ready to learn how they work in general, just because I find their concept interesting. Honestly, I think that Doctor Strange is almost no notes. He's very, I'd say, closer to slay the day than save the day. With the additional belts thrown in, a great detailed belt work that I think just elevates the look and brings it out of something as tunic oriented or just a little too stereotypical suit or common suit that we've seen from him in a number of different depictions. Sorcerer Supreme is also very cool. Save the day, and something that we've also seen in the comics, but just made more armored, and a little bit more elaboration within the upper body and the kind of cape and shoulder pad area. But yeah, God of Magic has a little bit more of like the gold hardware components that I think should kind of keep some sort of cape in place in the upper body. I actually almost kind of prefer how this look originally kind of appeared in the comics. It was a little bit more regular, for lack of a better way to put it, like just a robe and just some more kind of elevated kind of cloak mage-like elements. That would make it just a little bit more slay the day. instead of just once again, superhero suit. So I'm actually kind of really digging Hawkeye's. Still save the day, but there's some slay the day elements. Love the scarf or the cloak around the shoulder. Also contributes some great asymmetry. And even though the rest of the suit is just largely armored, we're at least getting some great belt and buckle utility, kind of strap details permeated throughout the look, which I just think makes it a little bit more interesting. And it does feel equally as futuristic as a lot of these other redesigned and more modernized looks have appeared. But yeah, Freefall is very elevated athleisure slay the day. Even though it looks like it's just a slight tweak to some of his more recent appearances, maybe within the comics, what makes this so fashion is it looks like he's wearing sneakers. And I think that he typically just wears like the stereotypical superhero boots. There's like a shoulder or chest harness piece that just adds a little bit more armor, but also looks like it's actual gear that someone could go to maybe an athletic store or maybe a specialized fitness store and buy. And then the belt is nice. Like it just has more simplified regular elements, just with enough armor sprinkled in. But the galactic fangs for an armored look is very cool. The helmet's really cool. I like that there's still that kind of cloak around the neck and the shoulder, which is a good contrast to the rest of the armor within the suit. I mean, the suit elements aren't anything that I haven't, like, I've already seen plenty of this before. I'd say the most interesting element on Hela is the cape that she has. I almost kind of prefer how she appeared in the live action, like, version of this, which I feel like this is kind of trying to take that, but giving it more armor, just more kind of sharper elements. But the live action just felt a little bit more fashion than this. But this is cool. And the red alternate, I saw a comparison to a version that this could have been built upon in the comics. And I think the one in the comics actually looked much better than this. It actually looked a little more fashion, a little more slay. Goddess of Death leans a little bit more into the slay the day. It's really kind of borderline. And why I think it has a little bit more fashion to it is just because we have a bit more discernible clothing items in the mix. Like the top looks like actual cloth that's been draped and composed and structured in a certain specific way outside of just a suit. Same with the boots. They look like they're actually like discernible thigh-high boots. But yeah, this Empress of the Cosmos has gone slay the day. Like we've moved into a borderline Hellfire Gala genuine look. I think she even has hair in this cosmetic, which is very nice. The gold hardware is absolutely everything. And the celestial body that she has, I think just definitely helps the white garment and the boots and the gold boots just really stand out and have a life and kind of presence of their own, which is style and fashion, like clothing, outfit. I'm gonna have to give Iron Fist a slay the day. Like this looks, I think, very similar to one of the most recent redesigns of the costume. It's the belt work similar to Doctor Strange that I think just brings this into something a bit more style and fashion. But it looks like a jumpsuit, a sleeveless jumpsuit, which is a genuine clothing item that we see people wear. And the boots don't feel like they're this typical tall superhero boots. They're definitely a bit more practical and everyday and functional. And I especially love it in the purple. But this look is a certified slay the day, like absolutely. We still have incredible, it's the belt work. The belt work is really great in terms of helping segment the different clothing items within an actual outfit. And in this case, we are getting like separate shirts, separate pants. And this is also loosely based off of a comic book look, but it's certainly elevated. And I love a little peek of the chest for some body confidence. Like, don't be afraid of it. Iron Man, and I'm gonna already spoil it for like Spider-Man, like when you just have a full suit like this and that's all you got, like if there's not even like you can't even see the human person underneath, like it's gonna be one-dimensional. And that's exactly what we're getting from all these different suits. Color, like it's a cool suit within itself, but as far as like a progressive, new, fresh, novel look, we're not really getting it. And like, I would say the closest is the superior Iron Man. Like, love the fresh, sleek, all silver aesthetic. And I think this is also loosely based off of like a direct comic book look, but his face is showing in the image that I'll put, which I actually would have liked if they just showed his face and maybe a little bit of the hair too. Like, we get it. We know he's Iron Man. Like I think if we're playing the game, we get it. let's play around and kind of show a little bit more of who's underneath, and maybe just kind of experiment with some skin displayed or maybe some transparent components just to make this a little more interesting. But there's plenty of room for that in the future. I would say that Loki's look is borderline, and I'm actually going to give it a little bit more slay than save the day, just because of how the fabric works together and how it's draped and how we're getting some slightly different textures. And if you took away maybe some of the hardware elements, especially the horns, you could see something that might just be easily considered more of like a high fashion gala type look. Looks very opulent and looks very expensive, but I definitely would love to see them play a little bit more with the live action depictions of the character. Like this look, very slay the day. Like just the way that there's really no hardware. It's just largely cloth and fabrics and materials draped together, different colors. Doesn't feel flat as a result of the variety of green that we're getting. That just feels so much more chic, elevated, and high fashion. Like, so Luna Snow is obviously a slay the day. Like, I think we know that a pop girly needs to stay in her fashion mode. So glad that that's the case. And I'm also biased because she's like becoming my strong secondary main, because she's really fun to play both healing and even damage wise. But anyway, cute variation on, I think, a previous look that she's already had maybe in another game, like the strappy crop top and the cropped jacket. Love the asymmetry with the gloves and how there's just that frosty shimmer to one of them, and the thigh high boots, like, and the short shorts. Love this framework in general on any female character. And so she's absolutely killing it. And her epic skin, absolutely no notes. Like, we're getting that frosty, shimmery, holographic design through most of the outfit, which is absolutely incredible. This is very much Met Gala behavior, or Hellfire Gala behavior. Cute little headdress elements, earrings, belt, like 10s. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give Magic a slay the day. This is also a little bit close to how she's been featured in the comics, but it just feels more elevated, more decorated, more accessorized, more styled. So there we're just getting key fashion components that bring us out of a strict, simplified, flat, one-dimensional super suit or super outfit. And again, even though not the biggest fan of armored elements and like overall outfits, just really love the contrast, or at least the color relationship between the white and the luminescent blue details. It just feels frosty. It just feels like a frost queen. And I really just think that it does complement her character, who's tough and like a strong fighter, but also just makes it feel more fresh and more elevated, especially for a suited armored look. I would say that Magneto was largely underwhelming, and I would have to say across pretty much every single one of his cosmetics, it pretty much just looks the same, but just slightly tweaked in a different format. I think that, like, I'm just really not impressed. Like, maybe the kind of halo armored element behind him is kind of cool, but it's just like more armored. Again, like, this isn't really anything that progressive. And one of these is, I think, kind of based on how he appeared in the comics, where he actually had a sleeveless suit. I would have loved to see them really lean more into something just with more body. Go no helmet, more bicep and arm, and just something that's a little bit more discernible clothing items. Mantis is slay the day. Like, we're getting, I think, something that has close vicinity to how she's appeared in the comics, but once again, refreshed and elevated. Love the asymmetry with the top and how it just kind of falls and dips to one side. Great elaboration as far as belt work and just overall details on the top. It just feels cute. It feels interesting. But as far as armored looks, and especially thinking in contrast and displaying some great range in aesthetics and cosmetics, this one is really cool. The Galactic set, this is clearly a Galactic set that I'm very drawn towards. And I think hers just is interesting with some of that kind of transparent, luminescent detail in the back. And the helmets across these have had consistent, great, like, wing or flare elements at the top that just makes it look sleek, aerodynamic, and ready to go. So Moon Knight, once again, like, it's something we've seen before, but just more armored. And Nothing wrong with that. It looks cool. Like, we know who it is. But I will have to say that I think I like almost his original default suit within maybe the comics or other media better. All white suit with some gold details. That would just look so much more sophisticated and elite than just like a typical armored look that we've seen across a variety of characters already. But speaking of elite, this is it. Like, this is 1000% Slay the Day. And I think that there's a depiction of him like this in the comics that's just all white. So glad that there's just much greater elaboration on the kind of folds and creases, and even just with that gray vest to help break up this being completely flat and one-dimensional. The gray vest, especially in the center, just to really help fragment the look in the white pieces to not help us get too consumed by it. And the gold easily, obviously, elevates this to another level. This is even better than, I think, the Hellfire Gala look that he had either in 2022 or 2023. Like, this is such a look. So if I'm not mistaken, Namor also got kind of like a slightly refreshed redesign here. So this feels like it is a little bit more novel. I like the relationship between some of the, I want to say maybe coral or just spiked elements. Speaking of asymmetry on one arm and shoulder and how that kind of corresponds and is echoed in one of the thighs. That's some great, easy design work to make this interesting and help us really take in all of the look. Plenty of body confidence, which we would expect from this type of character that can be aquatic, and still very tribal, very much save the day. But I mean, how he appeared in Wakanda Forever is absolutely everything. Still save the day, but love it. Like, body confidence max. I mean, I think we've seen this before, but I just wanted to highlight it because I love it so much. Penny Parker is consistently save the day across each of her different cosmetics, but what I love is that I think there's a tangible evolution in her depiction and design here. She looked very cutesy little girl in at least the images that I was able to find when I did a Google search on her outfits or kind of how she appeared. But just the suit feels a little more mature, like how we would see on a more kind of grown, refined female superhero. And I just think that her hairstyle is even kind of slightly different. The mech is also elevated and interesting. Not that I'm focused on that. I really care more so about like the human characters. But I love how she appears in like the Venom variation, just like with the braided pigtails. It just is a nice, more edgy look for her. Psylocke, I believe this is like net new, like as far as her default, unless I'm missing something, but gotta give it lots of points for that. And it really plays up more of a ninja component to her and like occupation that she's functioning within, which can't stand playing against her because she's such a pain to deal with in the game when she's just creeping up on you. But I love how the scarf is luminescent, but also has those kind of cool butterfly details. I just think it's a little bit more body covered, which is a nice range and kind of different variation for someone who's typically still body confident. But I still love the body confidence and I still love this original look the best. The belt around her waist is just so much more pronounced in this, which I think is very nice and really only complements her figure and silhouette. But I also noticed, and it's subtle, this is how close I'm paying attention, is the butterfly detail. We can see those cutouts around her neck and her upper chest. That's different than the original depiction of this suit. So just small little tweaks to make this feel a little nice for those who are big fans of it like me. I think I'm gonna give Scarlet Witch a Slay the Day because I just love how that top is positioned. Great silhouette. It seems like it's belted in place, or at least like the kind of perception of it or like the illusion of it, which is nice. Love a belted kind of top or dress or whatever situation. Just feels like more of a genuine dress, discernible from everything else. And the boots in this case feel like they have a little extra detail that makes it not so armored, not so sleek and simple, but just enough kind of character to them to feel also very kind of chic and up-leveled. And even how she appeared in the film almost feels kind of Slay the Day. Like, this is also a very strong look for the character. A little more Save the Day because it just feels almost completely bodysuit-esque. But I like the different dimension that we're getting with the top and the structure of it and the silhouette there too. She's just maybe a slay in general. Yeah, like I was saying with Iron Man, like Spider-Man, You can change up the colors, but I mean, a Spider-Man suit is a Spider-Man suit. And if you're a huge fan, you're gonna be like, whoa, but like if you're like me and you've seen it, like we get it, we know how this goes with him already. The chasm look, I'd say, is interesting just because the colors give a little bit more pop and bring us out of something that's completely always rooted in some sort of blue or some sort of red, and even just like black, at least kind of changes it up. But I like the Bagman Beyond. Like, it still is a little silly, a little goofy, but the clothing items feel very fashion. Like, this is a sleigh, because I could easily see a boy or a dude wearing something like this easily. And I think that there's so many looks within the Spider-Verse that could be pulled. Like, pretty much you could just take Spider-Man, keep him in his suit, and then just throw some clothes over top. So I'm really hoping that they kind of play in that arena just to give him still his root and foundation, but also plenty of surrounding elements to elevate him and put him into something that's a bit more versatile and new. Squirrel Girl also has close proximity to how she's already appeared, but just more body confident. Stockings instead of like full leggings and a nice crop top. Like, it's cute. And it's very much slay, because I mean, it doesn't look like a typical superhero costume. It looks like definitely an outfit that someone could easily wear. So I really like that. All the different textures, the different shades of brown. It's fun. And this is also a sleigh. Like, really like that the boots are a completely different color. Like, that's, I think, what gives it more fashion. It's not so matchy match. It definitely feels like she kind of knows how to pull some different pieces together in a way that fits her silhouette, that kind of complements each other in different ways, also being a little contrasting. And it feels a little, what is it, 50s, 60s? Like, it's giving a little bit of retro, new, like retro modern. And I really appreciate that. Also close to a previous look that she's had, but made very much anew. And that goes a long way. Star-Lord is largely rooted in armor, but what really takes this into a new direction, still save the day, is the jacket. Like, very close to what we've, again, seen in the comics, except it's just more armored overall. But I really like the play between something that's armored and then like a fashion jacket. I think that maybe if he had to stay within this kind of default framework, playing along the lines of that with like different types of jackets, or maybe even some sort of like pants, or even like a shirt, or just different clothing items, maybe even like a different type of visor. Like, I see a lot of options for this character in the future. All right, let's talk Storm. I will admit that I was a little underwhelmed by the selection. I just feel like it's differentiated. We're getting a little bit more cutout kind of pieces. It is a little bit more refreshed, but it really follows her strict framework. And even the Ivory Breeze one for an alternate, like, I almost prefer how she originally appeared in her all white look. And there's other white looks that she could be depicted in the future, or could have been even depicted here, that didn't feel so kind of like same as the default. And even the kind of like edgy punk look, love that aesthetic for her. And I like that they made it a bit more of a crop, and just definitely a bit more progressed than, and a little bit more decorated than how she appeared originally. But there's other looks. There's such a wide selection that are still kind of superhero oriented that I would have loved to see her kind of either added here at launch, or recently available, or at least in the future, because she has some range. And I just really hope that they do her a little bit more justice, to be honest. The Punisher, this feels like it really draws a good line between something that's as tough, enforcing, and intimidating as his kind of costume needs to be, but also like a rugged, military-esque type wear that I feel like is discernible, differentiated. But for an armored look, I'd say that this 2099 version is interesting because it looks like he's wearing a cropped jacket. And that's like, it still saved the day. But I like, similar to Star-Lord, how like, if you're gonna give an all armor suit, like, can we get some somewhat like noticeable clothing items mixed in, just to kind of make this feel a little bit more hybrid, a little bit more innovative. Thor, once again, I was admittedly underwhelmed. Like, it's what we've seen before made armored, and maybe just with a little bit extra detail and elaboration, but nothing that makes it any more stylish. Not that these have to be like, their fashion's the foremost priority, but for a paying customer or someone who would pay for cosmetics like me, like, that is the top priority. So it's really not giving us anything new. Even with the Herald of Thunder, it's much more interesting than the default. And I actually like it a lot better, but we've seen this before. So it's not like it's anything completely novel. There are some alternatives that he had in the live action that I would have actually preferred. Like, we're at least getting outfits there. Just something a little bit more fun and doesn't take the character as super seriously. Like, really hoping that they give him something a little more casual, a little more relaxed outside of just this grandiose armored look each and every time. Venom is the same story as Iron Man and Spider-Man, so really nothing else to elaborate on here, although the Space Knight cosmetic is cool. Armored, but at least a different aesthetic that I personally haven't yet seen from his character, although it is, once again, based on the comics. Winter Soldier feels new. It feels like we're headed in a different direction. It feels like we're building upon the overall framework or kind of box in which this character dresses or genre. I almost want to say this is a little slay because we're at least getting like a cropped vest moment and other kind of discernible pieces. Great belt and buckle details, but like it's slay-ish. Saving the day with a little bit of slay. And and I think that works for him. Although his most premium skin cosmetic so far is still very save the day. Like, not as discernible clothing, very much super suit-ish, but I really like a little bit of the, either that's a collar or a scarf around the neck, different hairstyle, a little asymmetry maybe with the armored pieces. It works. But Wolverine, slay. Like, absolutely. I think we've also seen similar looks like the leather jacket, maybe like in Logan or some of the kind of live action movies, but slay. I really like the version where it's almost like his suit, but like the color of the jacket is like his suit. Just so great. Easy, not anything too crazy, but fits his character still very nicely. I think in his regard, his alternate costumes can definitely lean a little bit more like his classic, or like we've seen him before, like since we got such a strong casual look as the default. But as far as more defaults, I would love to just see like a rolled up, button up, unbuttoned, showing some strong chest, some slacks and some dress shoes. Like put him in it, go all the way with it. That's not full gala, but it is something a little bit more sophisticated and very much slay. A little bit more rapid fire, but I think you get it. And this is just the beginning. Like with the popularity of this game, I'm sure it's gonna just blow up with cosmetics because they're all about that coin. So hope you have your wallets ready, but let me know which looks stood out the most to you or which characters you're feeling most passionate about. And until the next video, I'll talk to you later.